It was a test, cruel, calculated, and cold. In the silence of a marble-floored penthouse, beneath a glittering crystal chandelier, and the soft ticking of an antique grandfather clock, a safe stood wide open in the master's study. Inside, bundles of cash lay stacked like green towers of temptation, glinting beside ropes of gold chains and diamond jewelry worth more than most people see in a lifetime. He knew she would pass through here. He knew her schedule down to the minute, every pause, every breath she took in his domain. The man, Marcus Washington, a real estate mogul worth $47 million, stood hidden just beyond the mahogany doorway, eyes narrowed not with anger, but with cold anticipation. His breath was steady, calculated, like a predator waiting for prey to fall into his trap. And yet, as he watched his housekeeper enter the room and pause before the open safe, he never imagined that what would unfold in the next few minutes would utterly shatter him, breaking open a heart sealed shut by years of betrayal and disappointment. If you believe in the power of character over circumstance, in the quiet strength that exists when nobody's watching, then you need to hear what happens next. But first, let me ask you something. What would you do if faced with enough money to solve every problem in your life, sitting right there, unguarded, waiting? Hold that thought, because what this woman did next will challenge everything you think you know about human nature. The housekeeper's name was Zara Thompson, 34 years old, tall and graceful with rich mahogany skin and eyes that held depths of wisdom earned through hardship. She had been working in the Washington penthouse for exactly 8 months and 12 days. Not because she was counting, but because every day mattered when you're fighting to keep your family afloat in a city that devours the weak without mercy. Zara was a single mother to 3 children. 12-year-old Malik, brilliant and hungry for knowledge but trapped in an underfunded school system. 9-year-old Amara, a natural artist whose drawings covered every inch of their cramped apartment walls. And little Kofi, just 5, who still believed his mama could fix anything, even though she couldn't fix the growing tumor in her own mother's brain. Yes, Zara's mother, grandmother Asante, was dying. Stage 4 brain cancer, the doctor said with that particular blend of professional compassion and clinical detachment. The treatments that might give her 6 more months would cost $80,000. Money that might as well have been $80 million to a woman making $15 an hour cleaning other people's homes. Every morning, Zara arrived at the Washington penthouse before sunrise, her dark hair pulled back into a neat bun, her uniform pressed despite being washed so many times the fabric had grown thin. She moved through her tasks with quiet dignity, invisible to most, but not to Marcus Washington. To him, she had become an obsession, though he couldn't quite explain why. Marcus had built his empire through steel will and ruthless calculation. Starting with nothing but a high school diploma and burning ambition, he'd clawed his way up from the projects of Detroit to the penthouse suites of Manhattan. But success had come at a price. His first business partner had embezzled $200,000 and disappeared. His ex-wife, Candace, had taken half his assets in a divorce that left him questioning whether she'd ever loved him or just his bank account. Employees had stolen from him. Friends had used him. Even his own brother had tried to con him out of $1 million investment. So Marcus built walls. Steel ones around his money and emotional ones around his heart. He trusted no one completely, tested everyone eventually, and had grown comfortable in his isolation. It was safer that way. Lonelier but safer. When Zara first arrived, recommended by the staffing agency with impeccable references, Marcus had done his usual background check. Single mother, no criminal record, worked 3 jobs to support her family, references that spoke of her integrity like she was some kind of saint. It bothered him, this apparent perfection. Nobody was that clean, that honest, that trustworthy. There had to be a crack somewhere, a weakness he could exploit or at least understand. But month after month, Zara proved maddeningly consistent. She never asked for advances on her pay. Never lingered in rooms longer than necessary. Never touched anything that wasn't part of her job. She was polite but not overly friendly, professional but never cold. And those eyes, those deep brown eyes, seemed to see right through his walls to something he'd forgotten existed. That's when Marcus devised the test. But this wasn't just any test. This was the ultimate examination of human character, designed by a man who had lost faith in human nature itself. On a Tuesday morning in late October, Marcus made his preparations. He disabled the security cameras in the hallway outside his study, claiming to the security company that they needed maintenance. He arranged for his assistant to be out of the office, his cook to be at the market, his driver to be getting the car serviced. Only Zara would be in the penthouse, alone with temptation itself. The safe wasn't just left open by accident. Inside, Marcus had arranged exactly $43,700 in cash. He'd counted it twice. Next to the money, he'd placed his grandmother's gold chain, the one thing of sentimental value he still owned. Beside that, a diamond bracelet worth $30,000, left behind by his ex-wife in her haste to escape their marriage. But Marcus had added one more element to his test, something that would reveal not just Zara's honesty, but the depth of her character. Hidden among the valuables was an envelope marked Emergency Medical Fund, Asante Thompson. Inside was a check for exactly $80,000, made out to the cancer treatment center where Zara's mother was supposed to start treatment the following week. Marcus had done his research. He knew about the tumor, the prognosis, the impossible cost of treatment. This was more than a test of honesty. This was a test of character when faced with the power to save a life. Zara entered the study at exactly 9:17 a.m., carrying her supplies with the same quiet efficiency she brought to every task. She was humming softly, a gospel song her grandmother had taught her as a child, something about walking through valleys and fearing no evil. The irony would hit Marcus later, but in the moment, he was focused entirely on watching her reaction. She didn't notice the safe immediately. The morning light streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows caught the dust motes dancing in the air, and Zara moved toward them with her cloth, her movements graceful and practiced. It wasn't until she turned to dust the bookshelf that the glint of gold caught her eye. Zara stopped mid-motion, her cloth frozen in her hand. Her eyes went wide, then quickly darted to the hallway. Silence. Just the distant hum of the city 40 floors below and the steady tick of the grandfather clock. For a long moment, she stood perfectly still, as if afraid that moving might make the vision disappear. Then, slowly, carefully, she approached the safe. Her breathing became shallow, quick. Marcus could see her hands trembling slightly as she took in the magnitude of what lay before her. $43,000. More money than she'd see in 3 years of work. Enough to pay her rent for 2 years, to move her children to a better neighborhood, to buy Malik the computer he needed for school, to get Amara into art classes, to buy little Kofi the toys he wanted but never asked for because he understood, even at 5, that money was tight. But then her eyes found the envelope. The one marked with her mother's name. Zara's knees nearly buckled. She reached out, her fingers hovering over the envelope, not quite touching it. Her lips moved silently, and Marcus realized she was praying. Tears began to form in her eyes as she read and reread the words on the envelope. This was the moment Marcus had been waiting for. This was where she would show her true nature. Would she take the money? The envelope? Would she look around nervously and stuff her pockets with bills? Would she rationalize that the rich man wouldn't miss it, that her need was greater, that sometimes good people had to do questionable things to survive? But what Zara did next shattered every assumption Marcus had built about human nature. She stepped back from the safe. Not closer but back. Then she reached into her apron pocket and pulled out her cell phone. For a moment, Marcus thought she might be calling someone to share her discovery, maybe asking for advice about what to do. But instead, she opened her camera app and took a single photo of the safe and its contents. Then she did something that made Marcus's chest tighten with an emotion he couldn't name. Zara knelt down beside the safe, placed her hands together, and began to pray out loud. "Lord," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion, "I don't know if this is a test, a mistake, or some kind of miracle. But I know who I am. I know who you raised me to be. My mama always said that integrity is what you do when nobody's watching. But you're always watching, aren't you? You see everything." She paused, wiping tears from her eyes. "My mama is dying, Lord. And I would do anything to save her. But not this. Not taking what isn't mine. If you want mama to live, you'll find another way. But I won't dishonor her memory by becoming someone she wouldn't recognize." Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. This wasn't what he'd expected. This wasn't how people behaved when faced with ultimate temptation. But Zara wasn't finished. She reached into her other pocket and pulled out a small, worn leather journal. Opening it, she tore out a page and began writing with the stubby pencil she kept for making grocery lists. Marcus couldn't see what she was writing from his hiding spot, but he watched as she folded the paper and placed it carefully inside the safe, right next to the cash. Then she began to clean. Not hurriedly, not nervously, but with the same meticulous care she brought to every surface in the penthouse. She dusted the outside of the safe, careful not to disturb anything inside. She cleaned the area around it, making sure every surface gleamed. And then, when she was finished, she stood up, looked once more at the contents of the safe, and gently closed the door. But she didn't walk away. Instead, she placed her hand on the safe door and whispered, "Thank you for the reminder that there are still good people in this world. Someone left this open by mistake, and I pray they don't worry when they discover it. I pray they know that not everyone would take advantage." Marcus watched as she gathered her supplies and left the room, humming that gospel song again. Her voice steady despite the tears still glistening on her cheeks. The moment she was gone, Marcus rushed to the safe. His hands shook as he opened it, his heart pounding with an intensity he hadn't felt in years. Everything was there. Every dollar, every piece of jewelry, the envelope with the check. But there was something new. The note Zara had left was written in careful handwriting, the letters formed with the precision of someone who had learned that words mattered, that written communication was a privilege not to be wasted. "To whoever owns this safe," it read, "I found it open while cleaning. I have not taken anything, but I did take a photo with my phone as proof that everything was here when I found it, in case you need it for insurance or police. I wanted you to know that not everyone would steal from you. There are still honest people in this world. Your cleaner has 3 children and a dying mother, and even though this money could solve every problem in her life, she would rather trust in God's plan than take what belongs to someone else. I hope that knowledge brings you some peace. Sometimes the richest people aren't those with full safes, but those who can walk away from temptation with their integrity intact. Someone who believes in doing right when nobody's watching." Marcus sank into his leather chair, the note trembling in his hands. For the first time in 15 years, tears flowed freely down his face. Not tears of sadness or anger or frustration, but tears of something he'd thought was extinct in his world: hope. He had designed this test to prove that everyone had a price, that given enough temptation, anyone would reveal their true, selfish nature. Instead, he had discovered something far more valuable than any amount of money. He had found proof that integrity still existed, that character could triumph over circumstance, that his cynical worldview had been poisoning his own soul. But Marcus's education in human decency wasn't over yet. The next morning, he arrived at the penthouse before Zara, something he had never done before. He wanted to watch her, to see if yesterday had changed her somehow, if the temptation had planted seeds that might grow into resentment or entitlement. Zara arrived at her usual time, 6:30 a.m. sharp. Marcus watched from the kitchen as she hung up her coat, tied her apron, and began her morning routine. There was no difference in her demeanor, no lingering glances toward the study, no sign that she was thinking about what she had discovered the day before. She worked with the same quiet efficiency, the same careful attention to detail. When she reached the study, she cleaned around the now closed safe without even pausing, as if it were just another piece of furniture. But there was something different. As she worked, Marcus noticed that she was moving a bit slower than usual, pausing occasionally to steady herself against furniture. When she thought no one was looking, she pressed her hand to her forehead, closing her eyes briefly as if fighting off pain. Marcus realized she was getting sick. The stress of her mother's condition, the financial pressure, the physical demands of working multiple jobs, it was all taking its toll. And yet she kept working, kept pushing herself, kept maintaining her standards because that was who she was. That afternoon, Marcus made a decision that would change both their lives forever. He drove to the hospital where Zara's mother was receiving palliative care. He had never met Asante Thompson, but he found her room easily enough. The woman lying in the bed was clearly Zara's mother. The same graceful bone structure, the same intelligent eyes, though dimmed now by pain and medication. "Mrs. Thompson," Marcus said softly, "my name is Marcus Washington. I employ your daughter." Asante's eyes focused on him with effort. "Mr. Washington," she said, her voice weak but clear. "Zara speaks of you. She says you have a beautiful home." "Your daughter is an exceptional woman," Marcus said, pulling a chair closer to her bed. "I want to talk to you about her future." For the next hour, Marcus sat with a dying woman and learned more about character, sacrifice, and love than he had in all his years of business school and corporate success. Asante told him about raising Zara alone after her husband died in Iraq, about working 3 jobs to put her daughter through college, about the pride she felt watching Zara raise her own children with the same values of honesty and hard work. "She could have taken easier paths," Asante whispered. "Men with money offered to take care of her, but she said she'd rather struggle with her dignity than live comfortably without it. That's my girl. That's my legacy." When Marcus left the hospital that evening, he carried with him an understanding of wealth that no business school had ever taught him. Real richness wasn't measured in dollars or assets. It was measured in the choices you made when no one was watching, the values you maintained when abandoning them would be easier, the love you gave even when you had nothing left to give. The next morning, Zara arrived to find an envelope on the kitchen counter with her name on it, written in Marcus's careful handwriting. Inside was a letter that would change her life forever. "Dear Zara," it began, "yesterday you passed a test you didn't know you were taking. I left my safe open deliberately, wanting to see what you would do when faced with enough money to solve your problems. I expected you to take something, anything, because that's what my experience had taught me about human nature. Instead, you taught me something about human character that I had forgotten was possible. I know about your mother's condition. I know about the cost of her treatment. I know about your struggles to provide for your children while maintaining the dignity and integrity your mother taught you. What I didn't know was that people like you still existed in this world." The check in the envelope marked with your mother's name was real. It was part of my test, placed there to see if even the power to save a life would compromise your principles. You walked away from it, choosing faith over fortune, integrity over immediate relief. That decision changed something fundamental in me. I am tired of living surrounded by walls built from disappointment and betrayal. I am tired of testing people because I assume the worst. You have reminded me that goodness exists, that character matters, that some things are worth more than money. Your mother's treatment will be paid for, but not as charity. I am offering you a position as Director of Household Operations for all my properties, at a salary of $120,000 per year, with full medical benefits for your entire family, including your mother. Your children will have college funds established in their names. Your mother will receive the best care available, for as long as she needs it. This is not payment for passing my test. This is an investment in the kind of person I want in my life, the kind of values I want around me, the kind of integrity I want to learn from. But more than that, I am asking for something I haven't asked for in 15 years. I am asking for a friend. Someone who sees the best in people even when they can't see it in themselves. Someone who chooses to do right when no one is watching. Someone who can teach a cynical old millionaire that trust is still possible. The safe will remain open from now on. Not as a test, but as a reminder that some things are more valuable than what money can buy. With profound respect and gratitude, Marcus Washington. Zara read the letter 3 times before the words fully sank in. Then she sat down at the kitchen table and cried tears of relief, gratitude, and overwhelming joy. For the first time in years, she felt the crushing weight of fear lift from her shoulders. But this story doesn't end with a simple happy ending, because the best stories never do. 6 months later, Zara's mother was in remission, the treatments having worked better than anyone dared hope. Malik was enrolled in a private school where his brilliance was finally being challenged and nurtured. Amara was taking art classes and had already won a city-wide competition for young artists. Little Kofi was thriving in a neighborhood where he could play safely and dream without limits. Marcus had learned to trust again, but more importantly, he had learned to see the good in people before looking for the bad. Under Zara's influence, he had started a foundation providing emergency medical funding for families who couldn't afford treatment. He had discovered that giving money away brought him more satisfaction than accumulating it ever had. But there was still one more surprise waiting. On the anniversary of the day Zara had first found the safe open, Marcus called her into his study. The safe was there, open as always now, but today it contained something different. Instead of cash and jewelry, it held a small blue velvet box. "Zara," Marcus said, his voice uncharacteristically nervous, "you taught me that integrity is what you do when nobody's watching. But I want you to know that somebody is always watching now. I'm watching and I see your kindness every day. Your children are watching and they see your strength. Your mother is watching, and she sees her legacy living on in you. Over these months, you've become more than an employee, more than a friend. You've become the person I want to spend my life learning from, growing with, building something beautiful alongside. I know this is unconventional. I know our backgrounds are different, our worlds started far apart. But I also know that love isn't about where you come from. It's about where you're going together." Marcus opened the velvet box, revealing a ring that sparkled with more than just diamonds. It sparkled with hope, with possibility, with the promise of a love built on respect, trust, and shared values. "Will you marry me, Zara? Will you help me build a family based on the integrity you've shown me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of the trust you showed when you closed that safe and walked away?" Zara looked at this man who had tested her and found her worthy, who had learned to trust because she had shown him trust was possible, who had discovered that the greatest treasures couldn't be locked away in any safe. "Yes," she whispered, and then louder. "Yes, Marcus. But only if you promise me one thing." "Anything," he said. "Promise me that safe stays open. Not just the one in your study but the one around your heart. Promise me we'll always choose to trust first, to see the good first, to believe in each other's best intentions even when times get hard. "I promise," Marcus said, sliding the ring onto her finger. "I promise to keep my heart as open as that safe, for as long as we both shall live." And so a test designed to reveal the worst in human nature instead revealed the best. A safe left open to catch a thief instead caught a heart that had been closed for too long. A housekeeper who could have taken everything instead gave a cynical millionaire something far more valuable: hope, trust, and love. Sometimes the richest people aren't those with the fullest safes, but those who can walk away from temptation with their integrity intact. Sometimes the greatest treasures are the ones you find when you're not looking for them at all. But here's the question that will keep you thinking long after this story ends. In a world where it seems like everyone has a price, where integrity is often seen as weakness, where doing the right thing doesn't always pay off immediately, what would you do if no one was watching? What would you do if faced with enough money to solve every problem in your life, sitting right there, unguarded, waiting? And more importantly, what does your answer say about who you really are when all the pretenses are stripped away and it's just you, your choices, and your character? The safe is open. The choice is yours. What will you do?